Dr. Aryan Tavakkoli, thank you for being on Veggie Channel. I would like to ask you to tell us about your experience of becoming vegan. You're a physician. How can happen in the life of a physician that all of a sudden, maybe step by step, you decided to adopt a vegan lifestyle?
Sure.
This is a big change.
Yes, it is indeed. So I gave up eating flesh when my son was born. He's 18 now, so it was 18 years ago.
Okay.
And then I transitioned to a full vegan diet maybe about 11 years ago, something like that. I think the main reason with me was more for the ethical side of things. I mean, of course, we all know that following a whole food plant-based diet has many advantages for the environment, for health, of course for the animals. And for me, the reason I changed back then was more for the ethical side.
So at the beginning you didn't know it was healthy?
Actually, I wasn't really fully aware of the health reasons. I knew, obviously, that eating more plants was better, but I didn't really know that much. As you know, we don't get much nutrition training in medical school. There's not much postgraduate training in nutrition. So no, it was more for the ethical side of things. And as I learned more about the dairy farming and the egg industry and the very cruel nature of those industries, that made me move away as well from dairy and eggs to becoming fully vegan. And then it was after that, really, that I studied more and learned more. Actually, there's huge environmental benefits, there's huge health benefits.
So how long did it take, this process?
It was actually a transition. To begin with, I first stopped red meat, and then I stopped white meat, and then I stopped fish, you know, the usual thing, step by step. But the transition to turn from vegetarian to vegan was very quick. It was pretty much overnight. Once I decided I stopped all the, you know, the dairy and the eggs. And
where did you go to get your scientific information, the right ones, to convince yourself that it was possible? Where did you get on?
Well, it's
just
very,
went on the web?
yeah, it's very easy actually. There's so much information out there that anyone can access online. And of course, there are lots of associations now, vegan organizations with plenty of, you know, facts and figures. So it's tremendously easy to get all the information.
So why what happened to you cannot happen to the rest of the physicians in the world?
I think that in our medical training is very good, but we tend to become very fixed in our views after going through medical school and postgraduate training. And we're also not exposed to other facts that we don't hear in medical school. So perhaps we become a little bit closed to learning other information. I think in a way you have to transcend that medical training and become open to other areas. And also I feel as doctors we actually have a responsibility not just directly to our patients, but we do have a responsibility for the health as a whole, and the health of the planet is linked, you know, very firmly to the health of ourselves and health of our patients. So we need to be aware of all these things. For example, when we dish out fish oils to our patients saying it's good for them, we need to be aware of what's happening. How is that fish oil obtained? You know, we're decimating the oceans to get that fish oil. How many fish are killed to get that oil? How many fish industries are close to collapse or have collapsed? How many species of fish have been eliminated? We need to be very aware of these issues rather than just dishing out so-called medications without realizing the full environmental impact.
So actually, at the time you became vegan, were you already able to tell to your patients something about this new lifestyle? You started immediately, or it took time before you could be sure 100% that it was a good thing to do for your patients as well?
It did take some time. Obviously, I had to be comfortable with myself, and to bring it into the professional sphere is a different thing. But I started actually to give some talks. At the time, I was living in New Zealand. And so we traveled with my husband and my son, who was 6 at the time. We traveled around New Zealand giving talks. It was actually on the environment. It was called Our Diet, Leading to a Sustainable Future or Killing Our Planet. So it was mainly environmentally related, but it was all about how, you know, our diet is linked to the environment. And I brought in some health aspects in there as well. So that's how I started getting the message out. And then gradually I did start mentioning it in the consultations with the patients. As you know, in conventional medicine, we have very little time with our patients, but there's enough to kind of plant a seed in there. But it wasn't really until I opened my own clinic and I started working independently that I can now spend a lot of time with my patients talking about nutrition.
What kind of advice would you give to other physicians that they started listening about this possibility of living on plant?
In my experience, my physician colleagues are convinced by one thing, and that is trials, evidence, hard facts. And that's fine. I would say, look at the trials.
Okay.
Look at the published evidence. I mean, it's very clear.
Because very often they answer to us when they tell them the same thing. But those trials are not at the same level as the ones that are on the meat, on the validity of omnivore diets.
I disagree. There are meta-analyses, there are systematic reviews. These are very high quality, top quality standard clinical studies showing that, for example, high fat diets lead to a much reduced survival in cancer. The fat mainly comes from animal fats because plant-based diets are not generally high fat.
Why there is still this resistance of going on the internet and just look for the right evidence?
Well, I'll tell you why. It's because most doctors still eat meat and they like it. It's just like at the time before when smoking, was so widespread. Everyone would smoke. You'd go into a bank and they'd be smoking on trains and restaurants. Everyone would smoke. Doctors smoked as well. So it took a long time it's a personal habit, took a long time to change the mindset and to change a personal habit. Now we've reached a state of urgency, I think. Everyone knows the situation of our environment and the planet. There's no excuse anymore to be lingering in these decisions. We really need to get ourselves informed of the facts and to make personal changes.
Thank you, Dr. Tavakkoli, for being on Veggie Channel. Hope to see you soon again, maybe in Italy, for a next talk.
That would be wonderful. Thank you.